Hey, slabs! Today, it's going to be all about this thing. Yes, it's an elemental Carnage, which I probably mentioned in the previous video or some previous video. It's a fire one made by Atlas, which I think is the best type you could get. Rocking the Commando class mod. Got a Panacea shield. It's not a perfect one, but it's not a terrible one either. Got my Vengeance on there. Since this has increased shotgun damage instead of shotgun ammo regen. And by the way, I've got another Commando class mod that does have shotgun ammo regen. It's made by S&S, but it's a model 260. This one's a perfect 660. 5-line perp. So that's why I'm using this one. Plus, here I am at Jacob's Cove. So it just seems to fit thematically. Anyway, that's why I've got this. To regen shotgun ammo. These, I just like having these with me at all times. My three favorite Malawan legendaries. And by the way, I'd have a full collection of Malawan legendaries if I hadn't sold my electric rhino. And I might be explaining why I did that later on. Got my Sledge's shotgun on there. And so far 67 is the highest level that I've found for that. I've got my most well-rounded shotgun that outperforms most, if not all, of the legendary shotguns that I currently have. And I have a Bulldog with barrel 4 and a mag 4 type of cylinder and a good body. But this outperforms even that overall. In every way except capacity. Gotta have some backup weapons on me since I'm going commando. These would be backup weapons. Anything other than a shotgun, that is. But this is the main focus right here. And if I switch to tactician, it'll be to illustrate its high synergy with a Panacea when it has team health regen as its last line. In this case, it's 5th line. And 4 points in quick charge, so this would also pair well with a good Anshin shield. And I just recently was shopping over at the Salt Flats and came across a 2/3 perfectly parted purple level 69 Anshin shield. And I didn't buy it because it was only 2/3 perfectly parted and not entirely perfectly parted. I'm holding out for one which is perfectly perfect. I'll end up. Just before that, I came across a 2/3 perfectly parted Pangolin shield. I didn't buy that one either because I want perfectly perfect. By the way, I'm drinking a grapefruit flavored San Pellegrino and it's nice. Forgot to mention that I was drinking San Pellegrino in the previous video. What flavor was it? I think it was lemon. As you might imagine, this is not an ideal... I mean, this isn't a flak gun, so it's not ideal against aerial enemies. Except when they land, then it actually works. Got a whole bunch of them with one shot, apparently, or maybe I didn't. I was wondering where the rest of them were. 80% shotgun fire rate and 42% increased damage. That's monstrous.
That's what I'm feeling.
I'm such a monster. I mean, it would be nice to pack a... That would be nice to not have to pack a TDOR ledge and just have passive shotgun ammo regen. I'll probably also be cooking skags with this thing.
Bullseye!
Notice I'm aiming at their feet. I would prefer that this thing cook an ordinary zombie with one shot, but I guess that's expecting too much. I mean, not even an incendiary rocket launcher can do that. Even though they are just zombies and should die from that or be destroyed by that. So it would seem this is video game logic we're dealing with. Obviously, this is no hellfire. I jumped over your puke. How does that make you feel? Blech.
Target hit!
Gotta add some variation in there. Plus, I love making enemies fly. Just assume that I'm going to be getting use out of all my shotguns. This is like the best defender I've ever had. But I hate having scopes on shotguns. Even a high accuracy shotgun with barrel 5. This one only has moderate accuracy because it's a TDOR. But hey, 68. Oh, 72.9. Normally, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a TDOR shotgun with barrel 5 will usually have an accuracy of 68. which is on the high end of moderate, or the low, yeah, I guess that's the high end of moderate. This is actually a good elemental weapon because it procs per shot. Got my explodey on my turret. Very few Borderlands players ever use Shock Trooper. It's too bad it doesn't have more potential than it does. Kind of a missed opportunity, if you ask me. I don't know, maybe I just haven't explored its use enough. As Roland or Axton. By the way, I was here in Jacob's Cove yesterday and I found an anaconda in this dumpster. It wasn't a very good one, though. It was a level 67. Really? Can't kill one of those kamikaze guys fast enough. See, that's why I brought my best Torgue shotgun. It'll cover all the bases. And it'll do so with very few shots, so it's a very efficient weapon.
Target hit.
I bet it's the material type that gives this better than usual accuracy.
Nailed it.
It's not really accuracy, it's effective range. If we want to get technical and or pedantic. Which I know I tend to do. But the soul of perseverance would back me up on that. Of course, the shortcoming of this thing is it's exceedingly limited effective range. It irritates me that a single shot isn't effective enough to roast a zombie tank. I like the name tank. It reminds me of the dinks from Spaceballs. I think it's short for tinkerer, so it's actually a compliment. Some regard the word tink as offensive, and they came up with that because the word that it replaced is considered to be an offensive word. I'm not going to go through this whole place. Part of me would kind of like to experiment with this roasty carnage against wereskags, because fire is the most effective against them, but I'm not gonna. Instead, I'm gonna go cook some normal skags after I've had my fun here. I dodged your puke. Does that irritate you? Really, it's the slow rockets and the lack of accuracy that holds back a Carnage gun from being really useful. By the way, Carnage guns, if you didn't already know, always have barrel 3, which is what this is. This is barrel 3, this is barrel 2, this is barrel 5.
Who needs Dr. Zed when you have Dr. Ned?
A decent Anshin shield. Not perfect, but also not terrible. Not perfect, not terrible, serviceable. By the way, my 4 most used brands, I really like the detail of this pumpkin, and look at that stem. What was I saying? Something about Anshin shields? Ah, never mind. You're wondering why I put my turret out facing that way. You'll see here in a moment. And there we go. Pillbox formation. Axton's turret makes pillbox formation even more practical because, well, he's got Phalanx and Gemini. Phalanx, which adds a shield to his turret, and Gemini, which doubles his turrets. So if you have 2 turrets and they both have shields, you can imagine how that increases survivability. I die least often in this accident, by the way. 0 is my fave in Borderlands 2. But I guess I'd have to say Axton is my main. Because I have the most hours on Axton. And I die least often as Axton. Jumped over that.
That hurt.
Then again, it does kind of just spew out everywhere.
My gun shoot more lightning than the next leading competitor.
I would like to get my mitts on a Jacob's Matador. This one has barrel 2, and it's a Matador, and yet pretty good accuracy by the standards of a Matador. 30.7? I think it would have just a little bit more accuracy if it had barrel 4. I have seen Jacob's Matadors with barrel 4 before. And I don't think I've seen barrel 4 on any other brand of Matador, ever. But if I'm going to use a Jacob's Matador, it's got to be double X. Double X or bust. I know I've mentioned this before, but double X is a reference to Remington. I'm so glad they removed that stupid unnecessary cocking in Borderlands 2. I'm not a big fan of elemental shotguns. Not even the Maliwan Plague. How do you puke out of that mask? It's gotta be awful. Chew it back, dude. Chew it back. Kudos if you get that reference. By the way, before I came here, I was just farming and grinding. And I got a Maliwan Plague. Remember, that's incorrectly referred to as a crux. The SNS crux is the real crux. The Maliwan crux is supposed to be called the Plague. And it's the best elemental shotgun, I guess. It's supposed to be. And its standard mag capacities, base mag capacities are 5 or 7 because it's, well, you know, that's typical assault shotguns, except for SNS, which always have base capacities of 9 or 10. The Crux has excellent base capacity. Anyway, I'm not a fan of the Maliwan Plague. I don't like any elemental shotguns, not even the legendaries. Let me take a swig of my drink here. Because none of them proc reliably. If you're playing as Lil, you can override that to an extent. Or if you have a Lil on your team with the right class mod. But that's not a universal circumstance. That's an extenuating circumstance. I like the Dahl philosophy of consistency and reliability, which might explain why Dahl is my most used brand. Not necessarily my favorite. I certainly don't agree with the philosophy of the corporation. But when it comes to their weapons and gear, and their doctrine of use, and the idea of being consistent and reliable, well, that definitely appeals to me. In Borderlands 1 and 2, I'd say, across all characters, Dahl might just be my most used brand. And yes, there are some Dahl guns that I use with Sal. Even though Dahl is not generally regarded as a Zerk-worthy brand, but it's not that they're not Zerk-worthy, more that they're not optimized for Zerk. Because Dahl guns in Borderlands 2, as we all know, are at their best when you're aiming down sights. No matter what kind of sights you have. Dahl guns are best when you're aiming them. But there are some that are good for Sal. No one ever said that Sal has to Zerk all the time, and I'm admitting that fact even though Two-Gun Berserker is my favorite class mod. I wonder what this thing would do to those wereskags. But I'm not going to go that far. I think I have illustrated this thing's effectiveness against zombies. It's a blue, it's not a perfect perp. So maybe that's why it takes so many shots. Base damage certainly is not impressive. And it's only ×1 fire, but really, what does elemental rating indicate on a gun that procs per shot? Elemental rating on a full auto elemental, that I understand. And then you have the different degrees of tech pools associated with different brands. Malawan and S&S being the two best, respectively, in terms of tech pools. This has good parts except for the cylinder. It has a Mag 1 type of cylinder. But it's a Viper. And it's an electric Viper, so if you're going to use that expressly as a shield breaker, it'll do you for. But of course, that's a green one. You're not going to be using that at this level.
If this crap ain't enough for your ailments, visit my infirmary on the water in Jacob's Cove. Shields and healing, that's what I'm dealing. Come scanning from accuracy. Regenerator, even.
This is built from basic bitch parts, but if it was built entirely from Type 3 parts, it would be really good. Because explodey sniper rifles proc per shot. Actually, it could get away with having lower quality parts than that. If it had barrel 3, 4, or 5, body 2 or better, stock 2 or better, and sight 2 or better, and ×3 explodey like that. Well, I don't even think it would need ×3 explodey, since sniper rifles proc per shot. It could have ×1 explodey, and then it would have higher base damage than with ×3, and then you'd get good base damage and explodey power. And by the way, the jack-o'-lantern is of Celtic origin, like me. Celtic heritage. Mostly Celtic. Well, I have kind of an interesting mix of heritage. I'm mostly British Isles, so mostly Celt Gaelic and Celt Britain, like all the British Isles combined. And then mixed in with that is Northwestern European, so Norse, Scandinavian, Norway and Sweden, mostly. Also Denmark. And then I've also got some Indian in me. And by that I mean India. More specifically, Northern India. Which makes sense, because India, being a mostly British Isles heritage, India was at one point, as they called it, the jewel in the crown. Where did you come from? What? You're spawning behind me? Even though I came in? Never mind. Never had that happen before. And in this particular area, that I've had some stuff like that happen, where enemies appear to spawn in ways that they ought not be spawning. Go ahead, see what happens. Idiot. Ugh! I hate shotguns that have low accuracy. In this case, I'm tolerating that because everything else about that gun is pretty good. Especially if you boost its capacity to 3 or 5, or better than that if you can manage it. With Heavy Gunner, I've boosted Sledge's shotgun's capacity up to 5. So that's from 2 to 5. That's better than double. You know what? And now look at this. This is like the Dahl version of the Hyperion exploding sniper rifle that was in that shop, except this one has stock 2, which is a drastic improvement over stock 1. Try them out for comparison, you'll see what I mean. Just doing something a bit different here. Different from the... I'm deviating from the plan. But, no. I deem that acceptable. Basic bitch parts. An explodey Reaver's Penetrator would be really good. The Reaver's Edge Penetrator hybrid. It always has barrel 1 because that's the penetrator barrel.
Nailed it.
But notice how the exploding sniper rifle, even a basic bitch one, procs per shot. So keep that in mind if you let's say you're doing an allegiance run and you like consistency and reliability. That also reminds me, Malawan would be a good choice for Mordy, especially on Team Allegiance. I would suggest Malawan for Mordy rather than Lil, even though Malawan is like Lil's #1 brand, Dahl being the second. Malawan, I don't think Malawan makes a team-focused class mod for Lil. But for Mordy, they make the Survivor class mod. You combine SNS Roland with Malawan Mordy, then you've got ammo regen accounted for, team health regen accounted for, and if you're not doing an allegiance run, maybe you could combine, if you're playing co-op but not doing an allegiance run, then maybe you could consider pairing a Survivor Morty. Wait, let me start over. Not an allegiance run, but you're playing co-op and your goal is to make your team as absolutely survivable as possible. Not any specific skill set, but specific class mods. So that would be Tactician for Roland, Centurion for Brick, Survivor for Mordy, and I forget what Lil's is. Tormentor, maybe? Correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am. Another exploding one. Barrel 5, Sight 2, Stock 1, not sure what kind of body. Notice what I did there. In order to get all my capacities back up.
Guns over here.
It's a 66 or 67. It's a 67. Get all my capacities back up without reloading. That's why I did that. The switchy back and forthy. I'm trying to level up my proficiencies with all weapon types. I only have 3 left. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the Jacob's claptrap is the coolest looking claptrap.
If you find that your gun just doesn't hold enough bullets, then SNS has the solution. More bullets. All SNS guns have extended magazines.
I'll go cook some skags after I'm done here, and I'm almost done here. Would be fun to test Karate Go Nuts Carnage against Crimson Lance and Old Haven. Did any of those hit? This would be so much better as a grenade launcher. An incendiary jackal. The jackal can be elemental, right? That's what you want. That would actually make the jackal purposeful. Without an element, it's not explodey enough. It's too weak. Too weak to be considered an actual grenade launcher. Which is unfortunate because that's wasted potential right there. Whatever was in that shop was so unmemorable that I don't even remember what was in it. Still on the lookout for perfectly parted shields, and not only that, but the best type of each. The best type made by each brand. Torgue, Tedior, Anshin, Pangolin. The only ones I'm interested in. You're burning in water. Fire water. screw that noise. Shotgun blade attachments are great for Morty, and they're great for brick, as you might imagine. I know I've mentioned this before, but I've often wondered, do Morty's skills and class mods that pertain to crit damage only affect weapons with a listed crit bonus? Because death shotguns have an unlisted crit bonus, and it would be a shame if they weren't effective, because that's wasted potential. Shotgun Morty would be awesome. I've done in the past, like some time ago, I did a 2-part mini-series on unconventional character builds, and the example I went with was Shotgun Ranger Morty, combining a Ranger class mod with a death shotgun. And I think, if I recall, I was using Ranger class mod made by S&S and a death shotgun made by Hyperion. I don't think Vladoff makes deaths, but I'm pretty sure they make brutes. Vladoff tends to skimp on accuracy with certain weapon types. Definitely with their shotguns. Yesterday I was in Jacob's Cove checking the shops, and in the weapon shop I came across a perfect S&S death. 69 purple, all the best parts. Fire rate was like 2.1 or maybe better than that. Maybe it was 2.4. That's better than what you typically see on the common Vladoff shotguns. But if that's true for S&S, then I would imagine that a Vladoff shotgun with all the same parts would now let me check the shops in New Haven first. Vladoff shotgun with all those same parts would probably have an even better fire rate than that. But in terms of overall stats, the S&S would blow the Vladoff away. Plus, if you're going to use that type of shotgun in conjunction with a Commando class mod that boosts shotgun fire rate, please be open. Of course you're not.
Dahl makes guns for professional mercs.
Don't need ammo, and I'm satisfied with my grenade mod, so I don't need to check that.
Get your mans here.
I already pilfered this place, pillaged the village, and sold everything. Which I do believe is standard procedure when you come here. Every time. Alright. One thing I like to do in playthrough 2.5 is return to the early game just for the sake of nostalgia. Just like in Borderlands 2, I love Jackville, if you want to call it that. The Arid Nexus.
First aid kit. You won't regret it. Teach those last guys a thing or two about fire.
Oh, rubberized grenades are actually good in Borderlands 1. I know I've mentioned this before, repeatedly, but most people think they're entirely lame always, but really Pangolin knew how to make them. And the way I figure it, Pangolin probably licensed the tech, rubberized nade tech, to other companies sometime between Borderlands 1 and 2. but they screwed it up because the way they are in Borderlands 1, if for indoor use, you can rebound them off walls to nail enemies around corners. That makes them useful, purposeful. Look how effective this is against skags. Yeah, cooking skags, that's what this is good for. It's not very good against spider ants. Spider ants typically are not affected by elements. So if you're doing Malawan and you're hunting spider ants, Malawan Allegiance versus spider ants, then raw base damage is what you want. So that might give you an excuse to choose different parts than what you usually would. At least if you're like me and you don't prioritize base damage with elementals typically. Remember the first time you played this game and you probably had a hard time here because you probably went over there before leveling up and you were using low-level chintzy weapons and gear? One shot, that's what I like. Was going to give you the spike when your buddies showed up. If you're doing SNS Mordy, then you might luck out on Secret Armory and score a Truxican Wrestler class mod, which is made by SNS, and then pair that up with an SNS Spiked Brute or Spiked Death. Best barrel type for Brute is barrel 4, and for Death, barrel 5. Combo. Oh, that would have been so awesome. Did knock it back, apparently.
Oh yeah, that was all me.
Imagine if I'd made it fly. That would have been hilarious. To augment or to offset? That is the question. And in the case of the Brute and the Death shotguns, Brute is increased base damage. Death is high accuracy plus unlisted crit bonus. A non-Hyperion Death, the ones I've seen, will always have barrel 5, I think. Get the little piss ants out of my way. I think if you're a specialist, you'll typically prefer to augment, whereas if you're a generalist, then you might prefer to offset. Open your maul. Open your bad maul. Didn't open its maw long enough. There, I screwed up my opportunity. I sort of made up for it.
Are we keeping score here?
Imagine if I blasted it up into these cactoids and it got stuck on the thorns. Another example of augment versus offset is which shields match each character. Roland's skills and class mods have high synergy with Anshin shields. Brick's skills and class mods have high synergy with Pangolin shields. Nova shields for Lil. Second to that would be elemental protection shields. And for Mordy, well, my favorite, if I'm not doing an allegiance run, my favorite shields for Mordy are definitely Torgue. Since Mordy is the glass cannon and Torgue shields increase health. So, to augment or to offset? That is the question. And no matter which you do, it'll work for you. Perhaps whether you're a specialist or a generalist, maybe both techniques will work for you. Any which way. But I still say that there's a higher probability that specialists will prefer to augment, whereas generalists will prefer to offset. I've experimented with both and have had success with both. Now, will this clipper be a 66, 67, or 68? Yeah. I've noticed that let's see what model this is. 250. I have a 660. 5-line purple model 660. I've noticed that uniques. Why did I jump diagonally? I didn't tell you to do that. Is it just a little piece of scenery that made you do that? Uniques at their highest seem to be 68. I've never gotten a perfect 69. Sometimes I collect certain uniques because, well, in the case of Crom's sidearm, I'm keeping that. I do intend to do a video on that.
Always nice to get resupplied.
Because I think it's underappreciated. Hardly anyone uses it. Because most Borderlands players don't like burst fire guns. I had a bone shredder, just for the sake of nostalgia. I think of it as the nostalgia gun. I love it in Borderlands 2. The Bandit version of it is way better than the TDOR version of it. Borderlands 1 TDOR version versus Borderlands 2 Bandit version. But in practical terms, I have a Torgue twin-shot bruiser with Twisted Barrel 3. So Bone Shredder was rendered obsolete. Oh, plus I had another motive besides that. I lost all my money to one death. And it was in exactly the way you would expect, the kamikaze claptrap on the Robolution DLC. Apparently, contrary to what Marcus says, it actually is possible to be too rich in this game. If you have more money than $2.147 billion. Initially, I just thought it was 2.1 billion, but more specifically, it's 2.147 billion, which I got confirmation on that in a Twitch chat. I was watching a streamer play OG Borderlands 1, not enhanced, but OG. Apparently, a lot of us old school Pandora heads prefer OG Borderlands 1 over enhanced. Mostly because information is listed more neatly, like in your inventory and in shops. That's one of my main reasons anyway. Yes, that sort of thing is important to me, because I'm a Hufflepuff. Actually a Huffleclaw. Ravenclaw secondary. That would correspond with phlegmatic melancholy temperament and Hippocratic nomenclature, or so you would think, but I'm melancholy phlegmatic, which corresponds with Ravenclaw first, Hufflepuff second, or, as some say, Ravenpuff. But as it turns out, I'm not a Ravenpuff, I'm a Huffleclaw. I can live with that. Meticulous, fastidious, sometimes to the point of obsession. But not puritanical. Not puritanical, never puritanical. Occasionally pedantic. That was kind of funny right there. Occasionally pedantic, but not puritanical. I see that red dot. That's good enough. Was regenning my ammo, which you might have noticed. Take a swig of my drink. Now, will any interesting confetti drop from these racks? How far will they go flying? Oh, and it bounced off those cactoids in the distance. I bet Sledge's shotgun, as long as you have ammo regen for it, would be a great boss killer weapon against Dr. Ned's final form, which I call Evil Ned 2. TOO2. You can guess what that's a reference to. Because the best way to beat Evil Ned 2 is with a Jacobs XX multi-projectile gun that knocks him back with every shot. Alpha Skags were intimidating on previous playthroughs, but not so much now. If you ever do Jacob's solo allegiance, whether absolute or mixed, and I would recommend mixed, because absolute is going to be a hard go. Mordy is the best character for Jacobs. Jacobs is like a very Mordy style brand. Even their shotguns seem like the type that Mordy might use, at least the striker. I saw a big electric skag. Yeah. Like the one I encountered previously. Hoping it would fly up against that rock and bounce off and go hog wild all over the place. That would have been amusing. This doesn't need a scope. I know I harp on that all the time. Shotguns never need scopes, no matter how accurate they are, no matter what sort of effective range they have. The only exception, maybe, is if they're a slug gun. But between Borderlands 1 and 2, and I don't know about Borderlands 3, there's only one slug gun, and that's the Jacobs Orphan Maker. And it fires 2 slugs at a time. They're not pellets, they're slugs. Because out of 2 barrels, 1 single projectile, it's got to be slugs. That's a really good shotgun for Sal. Probably the best. You pair that up with, of course, a grog nozzle, but you configure it the opposite way from how you usually would. Normally, the grog nozzle would always go in Sal's left hand, but with the Orphan Maker, I always have to think twice and force myself to remember it's not Widowmaker, it's Orphan Maker. It tacks off a portion of your shield when you fire. But it doesn't do that if you put it in Sal's left hand. a gun zerking with guns akimbo, and the shotgun is in his left hand, and you can put anything else in your right hand. What does that remind you of? What scene from what movie? I'll give you a clue. Imagine that the shotgun is a SPAS 12. Tough guy, that won't be as good as the one I've got. I mean the tough guy that I've got back in my collection. Because this is 2/3 perfectly parted. The tough guy shield that I have back in my... Oh, and it's a 67. The one that I've got back in my Underdome collection has the same 40% health boost. I think it has higher capacity than that. Yeah, it does. It has over 2,000. And recharge rate is 320. I pressed the use key without reloading prematurely. Now, what should I use on Skull? My Bernie go nuts or my Blasty go nuts? I haven't been using my Torgue Hunter's shotgun. I guess because it's a generalist shotgun, and I'm trying to be somewhat of a specialist here. I mean, an elemental carnage is quite the niche weapon, so it's definitely more specialist than generalist. Catalyst, maybe that was what I was thinking of. Yeah, Catalyst, not Tormentor. Combine that with an Anshin shield. Anshin shields for the whole team. Imagine how awesome that would be. Shield goes down, it zips right back up. Not bad, not bad. Not quite as cool as that, though. The Borderlands wiki says you never need to aim a shotgun, just shoot from the hip all the time. That's something a Hollywood moron would do, so don't take that advice. That never gets old. Never. Yes, I have blasted Skagzilla out of its arena before. Everyone ought to do that every so often just for the lulz.
Target hit.
Gonna flip and cook ya, gonna flip and eat ya. I watched Die Hard last night. Best Christmas movie ever. And every time I watch that movie, I notice details that I hadn't noticed before. Like how clever the foreshadowing is. Like, this event affects some event in the future. Subtle tactical foreshadowing. Not plot foreshadowing, tactical foreshadowing. Details that affect how the specific methodology that the claim has to use to win the day, or to survive specific situations. The first 3 Die Hard movies were great because they didn't make McClane a superhero. Get this answer on my face. Open your bad maw wider than that for longer, preferably. Don't get stuck on the scenery. That happens to everyone, by the way. Move faster. Hoof it, pile. There we go. My Torgue shotgun would have done that job with 1 shot because it has barrel 5. Same for this shotgun, actually. The Torgue is overall better, though. Because capacity, and because it doesn't have a structurally superfluous scope, so you can actually aim it with iron sights, which are all you need on a shotgun. Rifle sights. Second only to ghost ring sights. Pistol-style sights would also work well on a shotgun. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Instead of shotgun scopes, they should have just had a bunch of different reflex sights for shotguns. Or maybe they should have thought to put shotguns in this game that shot slugs. But instead of that, they went with this. Slow-moving, inaccurate rockets. And this one, Atlas makes the most accurate. I think Jacobs also. I think they're on par with each other in terms of accuracy. Oh, what was that I started to talk about earlier? Jacobs mixed allegiance as Mordy. Well, I think the best brand to mix with Jacobs would be S&S. So you'd use Jacobs weapons and S&S gear. That'll give you Acid Nova shields, sticky grenades, which can have any element or no element. Well, since they're explodey, in this game that's thought of as an element. But if since they're grenades, never mind. That's a tangent upon which to speculate at some other time. So you get Jacob's weapons, but you've got elements that you can work with too, aside from the powers that you can imbue Roland with, the elemental powers. And then for class mods, the class mods that SNS makes for Morty work really well with Jacob's guns, Gunslinger and Ranger. For Morty, Jacobs makes Sniper and Hunter. So if you were to do all Jacobs, you'd have good stuff to work with. But no shields, no class mods. So Jacob's absolute allegiance will always be the most difficult. Jacob's mixed allegiance is, well, it will be a lot more fun because of the versatility it offers. And you wouldn't have to mix it with SNS. I just think that would be the most fun. You could just as soon do it with Torgue and Anshin. Those would work too. Coincidentally, all of those brands occur at the same level tiers starting at level 13. SNS, Jacobs, Torgue, and Anshin. Level 13, level 22, level 31, level 40. And then the level tier system ends between levels 46 and 50. Let's get this done fast. I think I've illustrated that this is a decent weapon. It's no hellfire, but it's not bad. So, you have 4 weapon slots, but Jacobs only makes 3 weapon types. So that means you're going to want to have 2 variations of something. And when it comes to shotguns, one of them could be a Carnage. Then you've got an exploding weapon to work with on your Jacobs and SNS combination or mixed allegiance run. The Carnage will be your exploding, then you don't need to use standard sticky grenades. You can stick with elemental ones. And with maxed out Trespass, you don't need to use anything electric to bust shields. So that narrows down your loadout requirements. The only elements you need are fire and acid. Take another swig of my drink. By the way, I think the acid and electric accessories for shotguns have the coolest look to them. So I wouldn't mind one bit getting my mitts on a Mordy version of this. Since I have a Vengeance, I don't need electric shield breaker weapons. For the same reason Mordy doesn't, because Trespass effect. That's what my previous video was about. How the Vladoff Vengeance, if you start a game with that equipped, it spreads its effect to all of your other weapons. Its effect being basically Morty's Trespass. You know what? I should get some use out of this. I usually use it for its effect, not for the gun itself. and only because it's bugged, and so because of the bug, which turns out to be beneficial, it spreads its effect to your other weapons. Is that an exploit? Well, if it was, it seems like they would have fixed it. Personally, I think some of the details associated with Sal are... Well, everyone knows Sal is broken. I don't know if broken is the right word, though. Like how... if you have the right weapons situated in his hands just right, one of them imbues the other with its damage potential or something like that. That really forces the player to think about a lot of things they ought not have to think about. It makes things too complicated. And is that a bug, or did they do that intentionally? Because the game doesn't tell you that Sal works that way. And who would think to notice that? Who would think to intentionally set up specific weapons in his hands, the right one, the correct one in his left, and the correct one in his right, in order to share attributes like that? Nobody would think to do that. It's something that someone might notice by accident. I don't like shredders. I tolerate matadors because they're so powerful, but I prefer hunters' shotguns, as well as brutes and deaths. And if I'm going to use a brute or a death, it's got to be made by either SNS or a Hyperion. I could call it. I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish. But I'm having fun. This always happens to me. I get done what I intend to get done, but because I'm having fun, I want to keep going. Just like Skagzilla. That charge attack. Oh, no. Fighting two of these on playthrough 1 would be definitely intimidating. Annoying piss ants out of my face so I don't get distracted. Almost looks like the alphas were fighting each other over territory. I would prefer if Carnage guns, since they always have barrel 3, instead of giving them wildly inaccurate accuracy, what would have made more sense is have the rockets give them an arc. Because they're rocket propelled, they're still going to have good range, good distance. More so than an ordinary grenade launched out of a more standard grenade launcher. But have them have the trajectory be reliable and consistent. There I go, harping on that philosophical notion yet again. 440 shock artifact. I mean, 44. I was looking at the number 660 and thinking about the number 440, so when I spoke it aloud, it came out as 440. I'm maxed out on all artifacts, as you might have gathered. I know I mentioned that in the previous video, but maybe you didn't watch the previous video and maybe you don't feel like watching it. That's entirely alright. Oh, I know I said I felt like I wanted to keep going. Well, could go back to Underdome and check the shops at the very least. Should go to New Haven first. Every time I go on a shopping spree run, should go to New Haven first to increase my chances of... Oh, wow, bad barrel. It's a green. I always take note of a Hyperion shotgun with a spike on it because Mordy is my favorite. I have the most hours on Roland, especially this Roland, but Mordy is my fave. So that's kind of a reflection of how it is for me with Borderlands 2. The soldier-type character who everyone says you ought not play as because they're too ordinary and or boring or whatever, I don't agree with that. I think they're versatile. And they tend to be my mains. But I have the most fun with Morty and Zero. And not because of sniper rifles. Oh, good, it's over.
Iron Atlas, and you too can see what it feels like to hold the power of the gods.
Sniper rifles for me are usually backup weapons.
Get your mans here.
I could hunt spider ants with these two shotguns. That would be fun. If I go over to Rust Commons West though, at the what's it called? The underpass. I might be there for a long time battling all those spider ants, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I think I'll just go here and battle a few of them. With my unassuming Torgue Hunter's shotgun that outperforms most legendary shotguns. But first, let's check the shops.
Wanna shoot a lot of bullets really fast?
Good to be a shopaholic in this game.
When you get my machines and they're scary needles.
Where's the fifth line on that? Oh yeah. With that material type for S&S,
Mounting up.
that grants increased team accuracy with support going. I spawned two vehicles without even thinking about it. And always vehicle 2 first and then vehicle 1. Is that a Thanatos? No. But it has barrel 5. Best barrel. Could get some use out of this if I really felt like it, which I honestly don't, but what the heck, I want to max out all my proficiencies. Maybe I will. Just a little bit. Oh, I don't see the point of this. I know, after all these years, I'm still complaining about this. Why is this site like this? Look how piss poor that is. the damage and the sight.
Need ammo.
It's like almost no zoom. So all it does is it cuts off your peripheral vision. Even worse than Sight 1 for combat rifles.
I'm out of mags.
Doesn't use mags, uses a power cell. Screw it. I'm putting this back on. I'll level this up some other time. Right now I'm having fun with weapons that are actually good. You can tell I was here already.
All right, boys, take them out.
Took you long enough. Why'd that take more than one shot? I wonder what would have happened if I'd thrown my shield down as a means of protection from that grenade. Would my Scorpio turret's shield actually protect me from that? Now this has 68.2 accuracy, which is 0.2 higher than a machine gun with barrel 2. But if you think of accuracy as being factored in terms of what in video games is called projectile spread, but what in real-world terms is called minute of angle, which is also an engineering term, I might add. And by the way, my grandpa was an engineer. Then, that's right, I checked this already. Thought I did, but I just had to make sure. Then, I don't know, I guess it just gives you a different perspective. These shotguns, these two shotguns make such an excellent pair. Torgue and Jacobs, the most powerful brands. I've got the least accurate barrel on the Jake and the most accurate on the Torgue.
Critical hit.
Sometimes it can be fun to dodge those if you don't have too much else going on around you to distract you. I like to jump over them or to the side. See what I mean about distraction?
Nailed it.
And these piss ants love to do that to you. They'll do it every chance they get. If they can make you miss a shot, they'll do it. And it's more annoying than actually damaging you, because these little ones, they don't do much damage. Even if you have a piss poor shield. Little ones, relatively speaking. What I really hate is how it's almost like you can't dodge their attacks. They'll always scratch you a little bit. That sort of thing pisses me off. Go ahead, do it. Do it! Do it! Piss ant!
Bullseye!
Wasted opportunity right there on your part. Well, this wasn't as much fun as I'd thought it would be. I was hoping to battle bigger bugs.
Nailed it.
Instead, I just got a bunch of piss ants. I hate piss ants. Every game has to have some sort of pissant enemy. The kind that we all love to hate. By the way, on all previous playthroughs, I've noticed that most of the stuff you find here in this area, it'll usually be shields and class mods. But at least on playthrough 1, been here already, obviously, like I said before, on playthrough 1, they'll almost always be under-leveled, so there's no point. And I think they're like that on playthrough 2. 2 also as well. Well, I wasn't satisfied with this little hunting excursion.
400% more.
That's not nearly as good as the one I've got.
Doesn't make the guns out of freaking wood.
Yeah, look at that. Vladoff might be somewhat of a good brand for Rick for an allegiance run. If you base your allegiance choice around class mods like I do, Torgue is the premier choice for Rick. But Torgue can also be fun for Roland if you're doing solo allegiance. SNS or Vladoff for team allegiance, because if you're playing Roland and you're doing team allegiance and you really want to build an allegiance dream team, then you want support gunner for sure for Roland. If your Roland player goes SNS, support gunner is made by both SNS and Vladoff. So assume that you definitely want support gunner. If you go SNS Roland, then your Mordy player could go Malawan. And then you get the Survivor class mod. Plus half of the legendaries that Malawan makes are Morty-style guns. And they cover the 2 best elements. A high-level Morty won't need electric weapons, because Trespass, I know I mentioned that before, I'm reiterating with a purpose. I hear another spider ant. But if you go Vladoff Roland, then I would suggest SNS Morty. SNS is a fun brand for Morty. Good for solo allegiance or team allegiance. Because you get, if you do solo allegiance Morty with SNS, you'll probably focus on gunslinger. Someone's got an electric. Get out faster, doggone it. Such a pisser. The hell? A couple of days ago, I was right here. And I killed an ordinary bandit goon to death right here in this very spot and found a Jacob Striker. But it was a really ordinary one that I ended up selling. I have one in my collection that's near perfect, except that it has a structurally superfluous scope that has way more zoom than it needs, because even though the gun has barrel 5, as it always does, because that's its defining part, for some reason its accuracy is less than what you would normally have for no apparent reason. Good thing my car blew up right there, right next to a new a catch-a-ride. See how this does. Stuck on scenery, of course.
Are we keeping score here?
That's what I like to see. Am I transforming into the leprechaun? No one else could ever play that role like Warwick Davis.
Are you about ready to get right? Sure got you right now.
I got the ride.
Well, since I took out the blue one of them is called Widowmaker and the other is called Helobe. Obviously, Helobe is the male version of Shelobe. I guess since I've taken out one, I need to take out the other. Right? I mean, just to be fair. Now these are really pissants. These are the most pissantish of all pissants. They exist only to distract and annoy you. I'm thinking I should go commando more often. I'm having fun with this. As long as I can get my mitts on an elemental Carnage, otherwise I could carry a backup weapon that's not a shotgun. Gotta have your acid and fire accounted for. Well, at least it's not a white. I hate it when red chests troll me by having one or more white labeled junkers in them. That's a pisser for sure. This is kind of a ridiculous range for a shotgun, but I can dig it. And this one's even better, 72.9. Still say it doesn't need a scope. It's so freaking dumb that I have to reload the gun. It ought not have to be reloaded. Just because the game can't figure out that its capacity needs to be something different from what it usually is.
Up in the kill cap.
Now I have to smash some more pissants. This is so boring, tedious, and time-consuming. Kind of a good way to level up your achievements but mine are already, most of them are maxed out. There are still some that I haven't maxed out. Jump out the wrong way, boy, don't you?
That's where the cars live. Get you one. Buy a first aid kit. You won't regret it. Whether you are killing bad guys or exploring the unknown, you need a trusty gun by your side.
A stockless rifle. It's something I hate to see. It's so pointless. In this game, guns that should have stocks on them, when they don't have stocks, like this, that means you get a faster equip speed, but at the expense of reduced handling characteristics and more felt recoil, more noticeable recoil. Plus, this is just a Hollywood concept, taking the stock off a gun that should have a stock. Right. See also leaving stocks folded when they should be unfolded, or extracted when they, rather than leaving them collapsed. Why do Hollywood people not understand what stocks are for? Are they that moronic? No, and they also don't know what sights are for.
Nailed it.
Let's use exploding. Now I'm going to set my turret up facing this way because I'm anticipating that these creatures will walk. Oh. Yep. Well, I anticipated incorrectly. That was entirely pointless.
Target hit.
I thought for sure it would keep walking because of experiences I've had in the past. I thought it would just walk right by the turret. So I threw my turret out facing the other way, thinking that it would walk by the turret and then get shot by it. But I guess reliability and consistency are for squares.
That was all me.
I crouched down so that I could look up more. Isn't this the same kind I found before? I like the shape of the soldier artifacts because they're, I think it's an octahedron. No, if you put two of these together, then you would have an octahedron. What you got there is your regular pyramid.
Critical hit.
How did I miss that? That would have been zone sportsmanship style if I managed to pull that off, shot it out of the air. I've done it before. See, not even I can be consistent on a consistent basis.
Another notch on my weapon.
Was hoping it would fly more, but not bad, not bad. Doggone it! Why did that take so many shots? That's more like
that hurt. Target.
finally pull it off and it doesn't even go flying. Now, will I make this little skip of a jump the first time, or will I screw it up? I stopped sprinting, even though I didn't tell Roland to do so. Screwed it up, exactly as predicted. I don't understand that. This isn't even a jump. It's just a skip. Shouldn't be difficult. Should be able to make it every time, reliably and consistently. There. Why was that so damn hard for you, pile?
Always room for more loot.
Pounders can actually be decent. I know I've probably mentioned that in previous videos.
Was all me. Nailed it.
Should have stunned. That should have stunned that bug. You little shit. That's what I like.
Nailed it.
You should see how this thing does with heavy gunner. 5 shots. It actually stunned. Maybe I'll blast it off into the water.
Another one bites the dust.
I think I actually did, yeah. I think this red chest can sometimes appear in other places around here, but I don't know where the alternative locations are. Whereas the one up there appears up there consistently and reliably. Those can really damage your shield.
Are we forehead. Critical hit.
Good barrel, bad body. Also notice how the magazine is like a donut. It's almost like it contains a belt. So it's like a belt box or belt canister, more like, in terms of its shape. Ha!
Target hit.
That's what I like to see.
Oh, you know that hurt. Bullseye.
If I'd been using my Torgue, would have nailed it.
Oh, that hurt.
The types of spider ants that pose the biggest threat
Bullseye.
are the big electric ones and the queens. The ones that shoot extra powerful globs at you. Because both of them can wreck your shield very fast. Well, there was a blue something around here. Nothing special, but I don't know if I picked it up. Looked like a grenade mod. I don't really need it. But ever since I lost all that money, $2.1 billion, $2.147 billion. I wonder what portion of that I've regained so far. Stompers really wreck turrets, by the way. Including Crom's turret. But no one wants to use Stompers. Yeah, 2/3 perfectly parted, but it's only 30%. I want a muscle man. That's the best Torgue shield. I want a perfectly parted muscle man. I want a perfectly parted panacea. I don't know what the name is of the best type of Anshin shield or the best type of Pangolin shield, but those are the four I want, the four perfect shields that I want. Torgue, Tedior, oops. I want to keep that. Got kind of distracted. Torgue, Tedior, Pangolin, Anshin. Oh, by the way, I have my skills set up to work with Tactician, Commando, and Rifleman. And to work with 2/3 of Heavy Gunner and Support Gunner. Let's see what this shotgun does to these turrets. I should get a bit closer. I should have used this one, but I wanted to use the Torgue. Now, for comparison's sake, I should do this. good arm on that guy. There, see? And you should see what it does to Crom's turret. Should test a well, I'm pretty sure a defiler is always going to do the job better. But if you don't have a defiler or a corrosive revolver of any sort, then a stomper's at least a close second for that purpose.
And you too can see what it feels like to hold the power of the gods in your hands.
That one has barrel 2 and body 1. I want barrel 2 and body 5. I want a perfect anarchy. Something else I want.
It's hard to seek new opportunities with old equipment. Upgrade now.
I'll go ahead and... I have a Torgue double anarchy, and it's a really good one. Back in my collection.
I'll TC the vehicle.
But I want one with all the best parts. A double anarchy can have barrel 1 or 2. Barrel 1 is a little bit more accurate, and barrel 2 is a little bit more powerful. Or maybe it's noticeably more powerful, I don't know. Skimpy mag for a machine pistol.
It's time!
Notice how I crouch down so I can aim up. The idea being that it should make them, theoretically anyway, fly farther. Or shotguns. Torgue shotguns have always been awesome. Well, I think I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish. And then went and did some bonus stuff, as I tend to do. So I think I can call it. I'll go back to Underdome, check the shops, and that's a wrap. Barrel 5, body 1, and a mag 5 type of cylinder. Don't know what kind of scope that is, but it's good enough.
Teach those last guys a thing or two about firepower. If you need healing, step right up.
So I hope I successfully illustrated how useful an elemental carnage can be. Till next time, catch you on the flip side, and see you next mission, slaboids.